Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Global Business Innovation Programme Immersive Technology briefing. I am Louise Hooker and I lead the Global Business Innovation Programme for Innovate UK and Innovate UK Edge in South Korea. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. The purpose of this webinar is to provide you with a bit more context around the Global Business Innovation Programme, more information about this particular programme, and introduce you to key contributors and explain about the application and selection process so that you can make a good decision as to whether you want to submit an application. This morning, we're going to hear from colleagues at Innovate UK, at the Knowledge Transfer Network and myself, and there will be an opportunity at the end of the session to ask questions. Please do feel free to submit your questions using the Q&A function as we go along, and we'll pick those up at the end of the session. The session is being recorded and it will be made available to you. I will send it out after the session. It will also be put onto the Innovate UK Edge website. And I will also share my slides because they contain quite a lot of links that will be fairly useful to you. So I'm going to now hand over to David Campbell-Malloy, who is Partnership Manager for Innovate UK and for Asia. So David, if you can just take over the screen.
Thanks, Louise. So good morning, everyone. As Louise says, my name's David Campbell-Malloy. I am the Partnership Manager for Asia at Innovate UK. I'm part of the global team at Innovate, and I'm just going to talk very, very quickly through the Global Business Innovation Programmes themselves. Just a little bit about Innovate UK. We are part of UK Research and Innovation. We are one of 9 research and innovation councils that come together to join up the innovation and research system in the UK. The government has rightly acknowledged that innovation is the key to the UK's future growth and prosperity. We have had the recently published innovation strategy, which is committing the UK to achieving 2.4% of GDP invested into research and innovation by 2025. So innovation is a key plank of the UK's growth and prosperity and also recovery. Innovate UK, we are the UK's innovation agency responsible for delivering the innovation strategy. And we have delivered with impact. So since 2007, when we were first formed, we've delivered a number of programs that have had impact. I won't dwell on all of these, but you can see a lot of those on your screen. So we've invested about 2.9 billion since 2007. That's been matched by industry to the tune of 5.1 billion. We've funded around 11,000 jobs, and for every £1 that is invested, we've generated £7 return for the UK economy. We help in 3 ways. We help to fund, we help to connect, and we help to collaborate. And I guess, why do we have global support programs for innovative businesses? A number of reasons. It helps businesses to understand the opportunity in markets and technologies. So today we're talking about immersive technologies in South Korea through the Global Business Innovation Programme. Our global support programs help businesses to find partners for joint R&D projects. It helps them to access new markets through technology partnering. Coming the other way, it also helps to attract foreign investment to support the commercialization of UK technology. And it also helps to build global supply chains and help businesses to think and operate globally. And our evidence suggests that there are a number of reasons why businesses choose to go global. Again, I won't dwell on all of these. You can see these on your screen, but there's a number of reasons there around sort of accessing value chains, reducing risk through co-investments, accelerating the time to market, benchmarking against competitors, etc. And Within the global team at Innovate UK, we have a suite of programs of support, ranging from sort of global scope and workshops through to R&D funding programs. The Global Innovation Programme sits sort of bang in the middle of those, and that's highlighted on the screen there. I won't dwell on this too much because I know Louise is going to cover the Global Business Innovation Programmes in more detail, but essentially this is about, we're recruiting a cohort of innovative, high growth businesses looking to explore opportunities, build collaborations and partnerships in specific countries and technology and sector areas. And that's obviously delivered by Innovate UK Edge. So thank you. I will leave it there. Louise, back to you.
Many thanks, David. I'm just getting my slides back up again. Here we go. That's great. And as David said, I'm going to talk in a bit more detail about the Global Business Innovation Programme. So it's one of Innovate UK's most high-profile programmes, and it's aimed at the most cutting-edge and ambitious companies in the UK. It's delivered by Innovate UK Edge. And if you're not familiar with Innovate UK Edge, we're part of the Innovate UK family, and we have a team of specialist innovation and growth advisors who provide tailored business support to innovation-led businesses to accelerate growth. And if you are selected for this programme, you will, alongside your GBIP team, myself and colleagues, you'll receive support from an innovation and growth specialist throughout the duration of the programme. So the programme is fully funded. It's an intensive and exclusive programme which runs over a period of about 9 to 12 months, and it's delivered in 3 phases. And it's aimed at really helping businesses break down the barriers of accessing international markets so that they can accelerate entry into those markets and accelerate their growth. And as David referenced, each GBIP targets a particular technology sector and market. And what we really do try to do is tailor the programme and all of our activities to the needs of the participating companies. Over the last 4 years, my team have supported roughly 700 companies and 100 companies, my team has supported about 100 companies to access the South Korean market, but overall Innovate UK Edge have, through the Global Business Innovation Programme, supported around about 700 companies. During the time that we've been working with South Korea, we've built up a really solid understanding of the market and really solid and trusted relationships with some key partners out in country, which include colleagues at the British Embassy and through a global network called the Enterprise Europe Network. We've established a solid relationship with a company called ED Research, and we work very closely with them to tailor the itinerary that if you are selected, you will experience. So I think I've gone through all of that there. So I'm now going to play a video because I think this really sort of captures the essence and the spirit of the Global Business Innovation Programme and brings it really to life. So I'm just going to play that for you. Here we go.
The Global Business Innovation Programme is a 3-phase programme funded by Innovate UK, the UK Government's innovation agency, and delivered by Innovate UK Edge. We provide bespoke support to innovation-led businesses looking to grow, scale and internationalise. The Global Business Innovation Programme helps the most promising companies developing cutting-edge technologies, find international collaboration partners and enter international markets of strategic importance. South Korea is a high-tech, fast-moving, dynamic market which benefits from world-class technologies. Home to leading electronics companies such as Samsung and LG and automotive manufacturers Hyundai. The population is highly educated and known for being early adopters of new technologies. Through the Global Business Innovation Programme, Innovate UK has supported over 100 companies to prepare for and visit this highly attractive market, allowing businesses to explore opportunities in various technology sectors to build and strengthen relationships and drive collaboration opportunities. Delegates build their capability by honing and developing skills and adapting to new business environments. Participating companies are immersed in the local ecosystem, gaining access to market information and intelligence, and are given exclusive access and introductions to key stakeholders and partners who would ordinarily be beyond their reach. A crucial part of the Global Business Innovation Programme is creating opportunities to network and connect with potential partners. B2B and roundtable meetings allow participants to explore opportunities for collaboration, and being part of a small group who are together for about a week facilitate peer-to-peer learning and UK partnerships. To successfully gain access to international markets, it's crucial to understand cultural differences and customs. Gaining this insight is an essential part of building long-term trusting relationships. The Global Business Innovation Programme is a journey. Delegates learn and are empowered by each other, growing confidence, and are given the potential to accelerate their growth and expand overseas. Welcome to the Global Business Innovation Programme from Innovate UK and Innovate UK Edge.
Well, I hope that gives you a little bit of a better idea of what the programme's all about. And I'm now going to sort of share with you some of the benefits of the programme. And I'm not going to do that by me sitting here and telling you. And what I've done is I've captured some of the quotes that previous participants have provided, and I thought that I would share those with you. So I'm going to share.
Meeting a variety of partners from government, research and private industry in this short time would be impossible. The involvement of UK government in sponsoring the visit was seen as very positive and provided a level of confidence. An amazing amount of contacts made with companies, and information on Korean companies that all fitted into a single week. It was an intense week, with long hours involved, but very well organized. The pitch training and opportunities gave me the ability to ask the right questions and give the right amount of detail to understand whether we had any synergies. We have strengthened our bigger picture view and are using it to motivate our supply chain. It is also opening doors in the UK by dissemination of our activities and view of the SKR market. In a sense, it gives us a global kudos and potential for accelerated growth via collaboration and understanding of the South Korean culture, ethos and market. One company that I have been talking to for a few months now want to discuss detail, and I am sure the Korean invitation impressed. It's broadened my horizons. I am now talking to a company in Malaysia and feel more confident about thinking globally.
Okay, so that gives you a little bit more of an idea of what people are getting out of it and the benefits of the programme. I'm now going to speak a little bit more about what the experience would mean for you. So in terms of this particular programme, if you were selected, we would start to work with you in around early March, and we will run a series of workshops. We will have 2 virtually and a 3rd workshop in Birmingham. We'll also you will work with an innovation and growth specialist to develop an action plan, and they'll very much work with you on a sort of one-to-one basis. And the whole purpose of the preparation phase is really to sort of build your knowledge of the markets, the ecosystem, so that you don't go cold, you go very warm into the country, and you're able to properly present your value proposition, the benefits of your technology, very succinctly. So when you're having conversations with key stakeholders and organisations and potential partners in country, you're very sort of well prepped to be able to do that. And we'll also cover things like protecting your intellectual property and mitigating your risk. And a really important part of the preparation phase is making sure that you're very aware about the sort of cultural differences and sensitivities, and that you'll be prepared for example, pitching with your slides up in the Korean language, because that often stumps people when we get out there. In terms of the visit itself, it will run from the 11th to the 18th of June. We will attend the VR and AR Expo in Seoul, but that is really just one part of the programme, and that's likely only to fill up about one day of our week. In addition, we will look at taking you on company visits, meeting immersive tech clusters, and hosting a number of B2B events. So what we'll be doing is working with our in-country partners who have got really good relationships with, for example, the Korea content industry, the Korea VR and AR Industry Association, and we'll put an itinerary together which is very much tailored to the needs of the companies that will be selected in due course. And when we come back, we will continue to work with you. In fact, in my view, this is sort of probably one of the most important parts of the programme, because what we do is we take you out there, we introduce you to all these people, but then there can be that situation where, how am I going to move forward now? So it's really important from our point of view that we continue to support you after you get back, and that will be through my team and also through your innovation and growth specialist, who will ensure that you are able to develop those relationships and exploit all the sort of connections and contacts that you'll have made in country. So I'm going to leave it there, and I am going to now hand over to Matt Sansom, who is Head of Delivery for Audience the Future Challenge. And Matt's going to talk us through the focus themes and key technologies and really what we're looking for. Okay, so over to you, Matt.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you both. That was good. Yeah, just to reiterate, my name is Matt Sansom, so I'm Head of Delivery for the Audience of the Future Industrial Strategy Challenge Fund.
Okay.
Can you see all that?
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, I'm not going to talk at great length in terms of UK or I Innovate UK because David covers that very well. I just really wanted to, I guess, kind of reiterate the positioning really of sort of Innovate UK within the UKRI family. So UKRI being the UK's innovation agency, which is obviously the combination of, you know, a number of research councils, Research England and Innovate UK. I guess the way to think about this is if, you know, if research is turning kind of money into knowledge, then innovation, as far as we're concerned, really is turning that knowledge back into money. And there needs to be a commercialization angle for us in terms of Innovate UK. So that's one of the reasons why we look to do what we do. So really, it's about identifying those areas of interest, those sectors that would benefit from support within those sectors and those areas, looking at which businesses would benefit from our support, and then really sort of helping them develop, helping them innovate, helping them commercialize those projects. One of the programs that we're talking about, so this is one of the things that in Audience of the Future is part of. So we were part of a wave, a number of projects, a number of programs of activities that were part of the Industrial Strategy Challenge Fund. And really the key aims of these challenge funds was about bringing those businesses together, bringing those businesses around these kind of key areas of focus, these key sort of industrial and societal challenges, supporting them over a number of years, a number of kind of like programs of activity in different areas of interest, but within those kind of programs, a number of kind of bits and pieces to focus on. So Audience of the Future is a £39 million project that ran, or program that ran over 4 years. Very much aimed at the development and the support of immersive technologies. Really, it's about the commercialization of creative content using immersive technology, but it's also about the development and support of those immersive technologies, not only within the creative industries, but kind of in and from the creative industries. And when we say audiences, I suppose the way to think about it really is audiences is any consumers of creative content. So it's not just about sort of people sitting in a room looking at performance space, it's also about distributed teams, production pipelines, say, you know, development of creative content, commercialization of creative content, both you know, digital, but also kind of hybrid models. So lots of different variations within that piece. We've invested in a number of projects. We invested in 4 demonstrator projects, which were At the time, they were definitely the largest global immersive creative projects out there. I think they probably still are. These were kind of significant grants. They were kind of sort of £4 to £6 million grants. So you're looking at kind of £7, £8, £9 million projects. We looked at 4 main areas of interest. So there was, well, it started off as sports and became esports and gaming. Now, in terms of the immersive piece, so there was kind of 2 sides to that really. So one was about kind of improving the audience experience and making it a much more kind of interactive, much more immersive, much more engaging experience. But also there was a whole suite of analytics underneath it that were using kind of AI to sort of drive that user experience. So looking at the game that was happening, looking at the kind of data that's being provided, then presenting that back into a suite of user tools that made the experience much more engaging. We did performance, which was Royal Shakespeare Company. So that was using immersive tech to enhance that kind of live performance experience. Moving image, which was, the initial challenge was around sort of films, games and TV, and that ended up being a games company working, so that was Fictioneers working with Aardman Animation, so Wallace and Gromit, and that was an augmented reality experience, so using mobile AR to kind of drive the story forward. I mean, what's interesting about that one is it wasn't just about the technology, it was much, the sort of significant piece of that was also around the story. So that was working closely with Aardman. So the big fix up, which was the piece which was the kind of content piece at the end, is canon as far as Aardman is concerned. It follows on from Matter of Life and Death. It's got the same characters in it. It's got the same voiceover artists in it. So just about a kind of standalone AR gaming piece. It was very much about that kind of the next stage in interactive storytelling and immersive storytelling within Aardman, but underpinned by a very clever kind of piece of technology which allowed you to do content releases across multiple territories. And then the visitor experience started off as the Natural History Museum and the Science Museum. It had to evolve due to the pandemic, but that was very much around using immersive technologies again to sort of augment that kind of in-person visitor experience. I would say, just as an aside, trying to run a demonstration program where you have to have, part of the restrictions that the requirements we put on these projects were to have 100,000 people. Trying to do that in the middle of a global pandemic when you can't put 2 people in the same room was a significant challenge. But actually a number of those projects, not only did they pivot around some of those restrictions. I mean, for example, the visitor experience, there were some basic restrictions in as much as the original piece was designed for 10 users at a time, 10 people at a time. They had to change that to 6 because of social distancing. But actually, some of the other projects took the opportunity as well to sort of pivot around those digital distributions and hybrid models. So, hybrid audiences, a mix of live and physical audiences, also kind of hybrid production pipelines, and also again, hybrid revenue models as well. So how do you kind of commercialize immersive content, not only using as kind of ticket revenues and kind of traditional kind of online box office, but how do you sort of monetize some of that immersive experience? We had a competition which was production innovation for immersive content, not the most imaginative title, but really that was about how do you create immersive content cheaper, faster, more efficiently. The idea really that being, you can do this, people do this, but it's technically quite challenging. It can be quite expensive. If we can reduce those barriers, if we make it easier for people to get into that space, if we make it cheaper for those production pipelines to exist, then actually you do a couple of things. One is you allow more companies to get into that space in terms of production, but also you reduce the cost of deployment, and therefore you allow more companies at the other end into that kind of adoption curve who can then use immersive technology. We did an immersive technology investment accelerator, which was very much about early stage businesses, but the key thing that was about using kind of our public funding to leverage private investment. So from our point of view, it's sort of increasing the leverage and the private investment we can enable into this space. From an investor point of view, it was de-risking some of those investments around immersive and creative projects. And from the business point of view, it was great because they got 100% funding and they got the kind of access to that kind of innovation funding, which perhaps they wouldn't have been able to do otherwise. Design Foundations is about early stage, very early stage projects using human-centered design processes, things like kind of double diamond, divergent, convergent thinking. The point being that these are early projects. The idea was at the end of these 3-month projects, and we've got another cohort live at the moment, actually. You have the kind of wireframes, the design documents, the kind of technical specs that you need to take this forward. So you're kind of proving the team, proving the concept, proving the idea, and then having that material ready for you then to apply for other funding or even kind of private investment. Or you get to the end of your 3 months and you realize that that's not something that's going to work, which is also fine, because actually, we have an appetite for risk. We understand that some of these projects don't always work. And the point of those really is the fact that actually, well, we've saved you from 3 years worth of R&D, or lots of funding around R&D. So obviously we all hope they're a great and glorious success, but if they don't, but you've learned from that process, then that's equally good. And then the other thing really was a Story Futures Academy piece. So this was a National Centre for Immersive Storytelling. So really supporting that kind of the applications of those sort of production and sort of, you know, things like kind of production skills, directing skills from traditional media, and how do you apply those into an immersive space. So that was a really interesting piece. And I guess the question is why, really, and also, you know, what do we mean by kind of immersive technologies? But I suppose the reason that we're doing this is that we feel that immersive technologies, in its broadest sense, you know, are the most kind of significant and potentially disruptive tech since the, you know, the web in the mid-90s. You know, this is the sort of technology that has the opportunity, potential, I suppose, to you know, revolutionize everything. I think I'm not talking about sort of, you know, entertainment-based VR here, but when you're talking about, say, augmented reality, and the form factor is a normal pair of glasses, and you've got that kind of information at your hand, and sort of the implications on everyday activities and sort of, you know, skills and training and remote access and all that kind of stuff, it is potentially massively significant. And I said, I think, you know, these are technologies that are great opportunities for the UK, but also, yeah, they are a potential threat to the UK's current level of kind of global success when it comes to creative industries and IP creation and production. So, you know, that's why we felt that you know, this is the opportunity for us to get involved, to support you as businesses, to help develop those opportunities and put UK at the forefront of this, which is why we do it. It's really about adding value to UK economy. Just a very quick note really in terms of what do we mean by immersive experiences, and you'll notice this on the brief, but, you know, when we're talking about immersive experiences, this is not just AR and VR. So it's, you know, it's virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality, you know, XR, all the R's really. So anything that comes into that bucket around immersive technology. It's also things like haptics, sonics, sensory interfaces. You know, we've had projects that use kind of immersive sound. We've had, we even had one that actually was around smell. You know, anything that you can define as a sort of that enables those kind of immersive audiences experience, those immersive kind of creative content experiences are within scope. Also advanced visualizations, and I think particularly interesting for, you know, talking about Samsung and LG is things like display technologies, is how do you present that experience to the users? And then those underpinning enabling technologies, so things like kind of AI and 5G and anything else that kind of enables those immersive experiences. So it's a very broad brush for what we mean by immersive experiences, but I think it's worth being as clear as we can be. And just as a final thing now, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a quick video. So this is a video that we pulled together, I think it was for South by Southwest last year, but just to give you an idea of some of the kind of projects that we have funded, just quite a nice little video really. So there's the portfolio is vast and it's broad, but I thought I'd show you some bits and pieces to give you an idea of what you can expect in terms of audiences of the future projects. So here we go. Hopefully this is going to work. Just a quick note on this one, actually, this is real-time, well, it's time-lapse scanning of an environment. Those are cows. So this was about coastal erosions. This was a really interesting project that ScanLab did. Just, you know, high resolution, high quality scans. So these are just, but it's interesting actually, because apart from it being kind of very clever technically, it's also quite difficult to look at.
Follow me.
There we go.
Brilliant. Thanks ever so much, Matt. So I'm now going to hand over to Sian Somerton. when David spoke to us earlier, he mentioned about the Global Missions Programme and a number of stages. And before a GBIP, the Global Business Innovation Programme, there is often a GEM, a Global Expert Mission. And with this particular programme, there has been a Global Expert Mission. And Sian was part of that and organised that. Unfortunately, it was virtual in the end, wasn't it, Sian? But
It was, yeah.
I think that took place about a year ago, actually, which seems absolutely amazing. But Sian is going to talk to us a little bit about the Global Expert Mission and the findings, and so therefore the market opportunities for the businesses that we will recruit for the GBIP. So I will hand over to Sian. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Louise. So as Louise said, I'm Sian Somerton. I'm the programme lead for the Global Expert Missions at Innovate UK KTN. So like Innovate UK Edge, we are part of the Innovate UK family as well. So it's a pleasure to be here. And as Louise mentioned, I'm going to touch on the South Korea immersive tech market and also highlight some potential opportunities for UK companies that came out of the previous Global Expert Mission. So for those of you that aren't familiar with KTN, or Innovate UK KTN as we're now called, we are the UK's innovation network, and as I mentioned, we're part of Innovate UK. So we really exist to bridge that gap between industry, policy and academia, and we look to drive forward positive change in the form of sort of economic impact or social impact. And we are made up of a number of sector teams and also some cross-cutting programmes such as Horizon Europe and International. So we work very closely with Innovate UK to deliver quite a lot of their programmes, including the Global Expert Missions programme. So I'm just going to pop back to the slide that I think David showed previously, which really shows the Innovate UK International Toolkit, which we do see as sort of a bit of a pipeline. So as you can see at the bottom, we've got some activities that are led by KTN and some activities that are led by my colleagues in Edge, like Louise, like this GBIP that we're here for today. So generally speaking, we tend to move from left to right. So we start with global scoping workshops to identify key geographies for specific sectors based on the expertise of the UK business community. And then we'll use this information to feed into where we might want to deliver global expert missions or global business innovation programs. So the GEMs, the Global Expert Missions, they're a little bit different to the GBIPs in that they really do explore more government to government level collaboration rather than working at the business to business level. But similarly, we do run a shorter programme, but we take a group of sector experts out and they do spend a week exploring the innovation landscape in the country. And they also have an opportunity to meet with government bodies and funding agencies, similar to Innovate UK when we're out there. We always produce a summary report from our Global Expert Missions, so you can find examples of previous reports on the KTN website. We've got three sort of key aims for the GEMs to distinguish them from the GBIPs. So we look to build international collaboration, we look to establish expert insights, inform UK business and government, and also showcase UK capabilities. So last year, as mentioned, we delivered unfortunately online with South Korea, focused on creative and immersive tech, and that was back in April. So for obvious reasons, we had to deliver it online, but I think we still had some really interesting sort of insights into the South Korean market, which we're really keen to share with you today to make sure that that can support the GBIP process. So why did we choose South Korea for this GEM and GBIP focused on immersive tech? Well, we've done some research back in 2019 and 2020 with the British Chamber of Commerce in South Korea, and the South Korean immersive technologies market really came out as being so diverse and sophisticated. South Korea's got a really well-developed technology infrastructure. It leads the world in terms of internet penetration and smartphone ownership. It's got a really strong standing as a hardware manufacturer and as a global digital leader that really lives and breathes technology, as shown by some of the figures that you can see here. So a little bit about South Korea's digital economy and the VR and AR market. So over the past few years, the VR and AR market has grown really quickly in South Korea. It's got an annual growth rate of about 33% since 2013. And this growth is very much in part due to the country's expertise in display and optics technologies, which are obviously two key components for building HMDs. The country actually owned about 50% of the global market share of display technologies in 2019, and it plans to own 70% by 2025. So really strong ambitions there as well. As I said, its strengths are very much in the hardware space, with about 90% of display patents globally actually owned by Korean OEMs. And there is really strong government support as well. So the government is actually going to look to invest about 537 million GBP by 2025 to support those display technologies and also reduce production costs, which I know is a big barrier at the moment. So while South Korea has obviously got that natural advantage in this space due to its world's leading manufacturing capabilities, I think there are some opportunities for growth as well, which really became evident in the GEM. The country actually imports about 90% of its HMDs at the moment, and they don't have any domestic companies that are specialising in building headsets. And that's actually the same for sensor technologies as well, where the country really does rely on international capabilities. So a little bit about the Immersive Technologies roadmap and expanding on the government support that I mentioned. So the South Korean government is in the process of executing its 2019 to 2023 Immersive Technologies roadmap, and that's going to lead to an investment of about 847 million in immersive tech. So really, really significant public sector support in this space. And the roadmap is essentially going to support the formation of a much stronger ecosystem of innovation through services provided by regional VR and AR production centres. And there are certain priorities under that roadmap. So training applications are one of those, and that's very much because the company employs conscription, and training is a really core part of the military service as well. They want to introduce VR and AR in public spaces. They want to develop light field camera technologies, set up content creation studios and nurture startups, and establish IT regulation sandboxes for defence, healthcare and holography as well. So a lot happening in that space. Coupled with that, so that the sort of government efforts are being very much redoubled by a digital New Deal, which was announced back in July 2020. And that was really put in place in response to COVID-19 and obviously the economic difficulties that were coming out of that. So there's about 543 million pounds in investment being made by 2025 to generate employment and growth in 4 broad areas, which you can see on the screen. So strengthening data network and the AI ecosystem, digital transformation of the education infrastructure, fostering development of contactless industry, and also digitalization of social infrastructure as well. As part of the Digital New Deal, the South Korean government has actually pledged to transfer all internal data centres in public offices to private or public cloud servers by 2025 as well. And the New Deal is going to remove certain regulations that have been a bit of an impediment to the deployment of certain technologies. So they'll be looking at things like using AR for telemedicine, permitting AR glasses when driving, and streamlining AR and VR content authorization stages as well. So in terms of the startup ecosystem, or the sort of business ecosystem a bit more broadly in South Korea, it's really vibrant, and there's a huge range of companies. So we've got international conglomerates, which are known as chaebols, and they are Samsung, LG, Hyundai, to name a few. But there's also a really strong startup community as well, and VC firms are really active in the digital space. And as I've touched on already, government support is really, really strong as well. And the country is actually home to 11 unicorns, which is fantastic considering how small the country is. South Korea's startup scene, it's grown very quickly over the last few years, but I think there are still some barriers here which became quite evident in the Global Expert Mission. A lot of the startups that we engaged with, they lack the knowledge or the expertise about how to move beyond the country's borders, which is something that larger scale companies have perhaps mastered, and they obviously have the resources to invest a bit more significantly in R&D. But I think there is strong government support there, especially from the Ministry of SMEs and Startups, and SMEs are very hopeful that they want to maintain a bit more of a competitive edge and access more markets over time. So definitely a very much an openness of culture. The startups that we engaged with during the GEM, including Luxid Labs, which I think is detailed on the slide, they were really excited to start contributing their services and working collectively towards shared global spaces like the metaverse, which I'm sure is going to crop up time and time again in the GBIP, because it certainly did in the GEM. So thinking about some of the themes a little bit more specifically, so gaming is obviously one of South Korea's largest internal markets. Over half of the population would describe themselves as a gamer, and they typically spend just under an hour every day on mobile games, so that's really significant. The VR gaming industry, VR AR gaming industry, I should say, it was estimated to be worth about 3.75 billion in 2020, and it's only growing over time as more and more players are actually, becoming introduced to these new technologies as well. So with the rise of VR and AR, we're seeing companies explore more than ever how immersive technologies can be used for entertainment purposes. So everything from VR arcades, AR mini games. We are seeing South Korean and UK companies continuously sort of pushing the boundaries for what immersive gaming can do. From the findings from the Global Expert Mission, the consensus really was that VR and AR are going to have a really seismic impact on the gaming and creative industries in South Korea over the coming years. But I think the hardware is not quite there yet. So there's a need for that to be developed for a wider rollout, but certainly a huge amount of opportunities in the gaming space. And moving on to training. So as part of its industrial strategy, South Korea is dedicating a lot of time and effort to improving its training programs across education, across industry, across the military, as I mentioned before, healthcare, every area that you can think of. And it's really recognizing the benefits of upskilling workers into more high value roles, and it's exploring new ways in which more workers can employ immersive technologies, whether that's in a particular role or whether that's in an educational institution. The government is investing to boost development in key sectors like manufacturing, engineering and healthcare in particular, and they really want to spur that high quality job creation and also improve the quality of its education across businesses and schools as well. During the expert mission, we were really fortunate to meet with some interesting companies, including Samwoo Immersion, which specialises in developing intelligent monitoring solutions and creating training simulations as well. And we met with the M-Line Studio, which also creates VR simulation to increase safety awareness and helps employees navigate their professions and conduct their roles a little bit more safely as well. So touching on education, which obviously is very closely linked to training, but education's clearly a priority for digital tech in South Korea, and it's one of those 4 areas to develop in the Digital New Deal, so gaining a lot of traction at the moment. We've learnt that universities are really testing and experimenting with immersive tech to improve their education programs. And actually, we're seeing schools now be pushed to use these new and emerging technologies as well, particularly, with COVID and that global growth of ed tech. So lots of opportunities for application. One sort of finding that did come out of the mission is making sure that you draw that differentiation between tools and programs. So just providing the tools without any guidance really doesn't generate much impact for the end user, who might not actually be able to use those tools to their greatest potential. So I think there is a real opportunity in the education space, as long as those tools are paired with programs that teach their use as well. We met with a company called Class V. They're a contactless VR classroom. They were really interesting to meet with, and they provide a kind of secure service where pupils can log into different virtual worlds and they can educate themselves on different important topics. And I think solutions like this, you know, they're only helping to pupils to learn new skills and topics that can further their education and development as well. So I know I've only very briefly touched on what we covered during the GEM today. It was a really great week, but if you would like further information, do feel free to drop me an email. You can also find the report from the South Korea mission on the KTN website as well. So do feel free to go and have a read of that. I'm just going to finish off with some conclusions that I personally took away from engaging with South Korea. So South Korea, they are a leading hardware manufacturer. They are incredibly internet savvy and they're very much a global digital leader. Currently, they are more hardware than content focused, although I think times are starting to change. But currently growth in the country is very much driven by display panels and optics technologies. Levels of public investment are really, really significant. And there are lots of different government agencies that are supporting the digital transition, including the Ministry of Science and ICT. We've got the Korea Creative Content Agency and also the Ministry of SMEs and Startups. In terms of culture, we found that there was a real keenness to engage with the UK, specifically around 5G and the metaverse. I think companies were really open, really eager to collaborate, although recognizing that obviously there are challenges like language differences or regulatory barriers, for example. And I think a key takeaway that probably came out for Innovate UK is to look at those means of supporting knowledge exchange and relationship building between the two countries. So I think the GBIP will be a really great follow-on from that and will hopefully consolidate some of the conclusions that came out of the expert mission to drive forward new partnerships with South Korea. So thank you very much for listening, and Louise, back to you.
That's brilliant. Thanks so much, Sian. Some great insights there, I think, and you know, I think it's really encouraging. The reason that the GEMs are held is to really sort of identify the markets where there is strongest opportunity for collaboration and appetite from those countries. And I think this GEM quite clearly identified that. And that's one of the big reasons, obviously, that we're now recruiting for the Global Business Innovation Programme. So I would encourage everybody to go and have a look at that report. I think you'll find it extremely helpful, and dare I say it, it may even be valuable for putting in your application. So that now moves me on to the eligibility application and selection process. To be eligible to participate, let's go back. You have to be a UK-based company. And you have to be operating, and you can't be any bigger than a company who's employing 500 employees, slightly different in Northern Ireland, as you'll see there. We really are looking for the very best companies. So you have to be globally ambitious. Obviously, you have to be in scope, and that means that you're in the immersive technologies area. And matters obviously address some of the themes, and for those of you that have seen the promotional flyer, they're all detailed in that as well. It is fully funded by Innovate UK, and if you've received too much money already, unfortunately, I'm very sorry, but you wouldn't be able to apply. So you need to confirm that you haven't received too much to participate in this particular programme. And there's also some other incidentals here that you need to have filed your company accounts and have no more than 2 counter court judgments and disqualified directors. That's all sort of, you know, basic stuff. But, you know, for me, it's really about you need to be able to commit to all phases of the programme. The visit is absolutely great. It's amazing. You will get so much out of the visit. but you won't get as much out of the visit if you don't fully engage in the preparation phase and allow yourself sufficient time to really do everything that you need to do before going out. So it's really important for any company coming in that they have enough resource available to them. And I mean, that in terms of their time to commit fully to the programme, and that's what we'll be looking for. We are still in uncertain times with travel. We believe that there's going to be quite a lot of relaxation in South Korea. There's an election in March. And so whilst they're quite strict at the moment, we can see that there's going to be a bit more sort of flexibility and relaxation coming in after March as things settle down. There had been a spike as well, like everywhere else. South Korea have actually done very well to contain the virus, but with Omicron, they had seen a bit of a spike, and just before Christmas, they put a suspension to their exemption from quarantine. That is due to be reviewed in early February, and I anticipate that we are going to be absolutely fine for getting out to South Korea. What you need to do is you need to satisfy us that you are able to commit, and you must go to the South Korean link here and just check that you would be able to comply with their requirements. That is not us enforcing it. It's obviously a requirement coming from South Korea. So you do need to check that out, please. Right, so I'm just going to run through all of these so that we've got them up and people can see them. Sorry, gone too far. There we go. Application deadline is the 16th of February. We are very strict on that. So if it arrives on the 17th, I'm sorry, it won't get looked at. We do anticipate that there's going to be strong interest in this GBIP, so you will need to get your application in on time. If you do have an Innovate UK Edge specialist, innovation and growth specialist, I would encourage you to discuss your application with them. Applications will only be accepted online. I will, however, share with you, if you're interested, a sample application form. It's really there for guidance so that you can prepare your application, because once you go online, you can't save it and return to it. You have to do it in one session. And we will be looking for people who have gone out of their way a little bit to do some research, have a really sort of good idea about the opportunity for them in the country, and can articulate what their interest is and what the benefit would be to them of participating in this programme. So one or two lines in each box really is not going to do it. And conversely, actually, if you were to do reams and reams of text, that's not focused enough. So we need sort of some really good, strong applications in. To participate, it has to be a company representative from senior management. There's a good reason for that. South Korea is very hierarchical, so they will be looking to have conversations with senior people and people who have technical expertise but are also decision makers in companies. So please make sure that if you are applying, you are selecting the right person to put in your application. And it's also because we know that more senior people can then cascade information through the companies in longer term. In terms of the application, there will be an evaluation. The applications will be scored by a selection panel, and we will look at, the technology, scope and opportunity, and we will, reach our decision on that basis. And we will look to select up to 15 companies who meet a quality threshold, and who are fully able to participate in all three phases of the programme. Places will be offered by no later than the 2nd of March. Anybody who is unsuccessful, we will definitely contact you and tell you that you have been unsuccessful. So we won't just leave you hanging, but you would be expecting that a little bit after the 2nd of March to allow us time to offer out all the places. And there is a refundable commitment fee of £500. That's just refundable at the end of the programme, but we do take that to ensure that people really sort of commit to the programme and participate in every single phase. And then, yes, so we have obviously the other key dates here. As I said earlier, we will run 3 workshops. We do 2 virtually, and then we'll all come together in Birmingham just before we go out on the visit, and we'll do different activities in all of those workshops. I think that's it. So if anybody has any questions, now is the time to take those. Right, I can see it says 5 in here. Is there a digital startup in Seoul? Yes, there are. There are lots of startups, startup hubs in Seoul and in other areas like Daegu, Daejeon, places like that. So yes, there is lots of activity in this space. What level of spoken and written English do people have? You will find that older, more senior people may not have a good grasp of the English language. You'll tend to find that younger people are very, capable of speaking English. And it's not really ever been a problem for us. However, it can be. I would definitely say that you would need, if you're going to be dealing with South Korea, you need to factor in, you will need to get information translated, interpreters as well involved. And as part of the programme, if we're going to places where we'll need interpreters, they will be available, and they will be available to assist you with meetings as well. What you also tend to find is that they will read English better than they will speak English. And dare I say it, I wouldn't rely on translating material that I was going to, try and bid for business with by using Google Translate. But Google Translate is actually quite helpful if you just want to sort of, get some basic information over. But yeah, generally more senior people, more difficult. Younger people, they will be speaking English.
Just to add on that one, I think when it comes to the mission itself, obviously we'll have translators on hand, but I would say that when it comes to your pitch, and obviously we're dealing with complicated kind of R&D technical projects, just be careful how you kind of how that sort of your presentation and the practice before you get there, because if you're relying on you speaking and then one of the translators kind of expressing very kind of complicated technical processes, they will struggle. So I think if you've got kind of printed materials, translated materials for some of the more kind of in-depth technical stuff, that would be helpful. But I think just make sure that your kind of your pitch and your proposal is something that you can express as cleanly, as simply as possible, would be my advice, because you really need to sort of get across the concept and get across what you're trying to do.
Yeah, I mean, as part of the preparation phase, we'll explore that in quite a lot of detail. But if we're using translators as well, we will always share information before any event or pitching, because we know that they will need to go away and probably do a bit of research around your technology. So there's means and ways for us to address that. However, I do think you need to keep things quite simple, because when you're dealing with sort of different languages and barriers, it can be quite difficult for people in the first instance to understand everything. So okay, I'm just getting quite a lot here. I don't know which. Earlier, the Korean content introducers mentioned, can you be more specific? There's lots of companies involved in that. I'd have to get more information from our colleagues, or just do a bit more research online.
The target businesses that we'll engage with will be sort of optimized for the nature of the people that we take. So once we know who's going, we will kind of tweak the agenda, and we'll tweak the kind of contact list to make sure that it's appropriate for everyone that's going.
Yeah. Here's one. I'm a delegate on the Audience of the Future. Would that preclude me from doing this? No, it wouldn't preclude you from applying and being selected. What we need to really understand, I mean, obviously, we would mark everybody on the merits of their application, but you know, we do try and offer this out to as many companies as possible. And what we would need to understand is that you would have the resource to fully commit to both programs.
Yeah, and be very clear, I suppose, about why South Korea is a territory of interest for you, because it will be different answers than the Austin trip. But yeah.
Typically, what type, size, age of business has participated in the past? All different. And what we'll try to do in any one cohort is get a mixture, actually, because what we know is that, you know, more mature businesses that may have international experience will be able to cascade their knowledge down into the smaller companies, and that again is about sort of, you know, accelerating the whole group, and we do find that that works really well. So it's not only about learning through the experience of going to South Korea, it's about learning through your peers within the cohort as well.
In terms of the applications, are the applications restricted to SMEs only?
It's yeah. So I mean, well, up to 500.
Yeah, employees. Okay. So you can't be a large organisation and be eligible. So you have to be an SME for this. Yeah.
Under 500 employees or 250 in Ireland. Hi Matt, how has the outreach evolved from the visit to South Korea in 2018?
Well, I think you know, the world has turned. I think, you know, the development of immersive tech and the platforms and the underpinning enabling technology has advanced. So I think it's a slightly different space. I would say, in terms of the global technology report that Sean was looking at, it's it's worth a look, because we actually commissioned that just before the first round, before the pandemic landed. So we got a really interesting baseline of immersive tech. So the kind of immersive economy report, effectively, for South Korea. We got an interesting baseline. And then a year later, so this time sort of last year, we also then went back to the British Chamber of Commerce in Korea and got them to update the report from us. So we have a kind of an interesting variation in terms of the impact of the pandemic as well. So it's definitely evolved. It's definitely of interest. I think one thing I would say was one of the strengths, one of the things we found out from the last mission, and it's still very true, is that South Korean businesses and the larger organizations are only interested in being global number one. So I think one of the things to think about in terms of access to South Korea, it's not about accessing South Korea as a market. South Korea in and of itself is, of course, really interesting, but it's not massive. Whereas actually what you get by partnering with some of the businesses within South Korea is that sort of that global aspiration. So it's about taking, you know, the UK creative content that we're very good at, and looking at how you scale those kind of creative projects and those creative technology projects and scale them globally. That's the thing to think about. They're very good at that. I think that's where the advantage is.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely agree with that. Can you bring a colleague if you pay for them? Absolutely not. No, sorry about that. Only one participant from each company is able to participate. Virtual workshop clashes with South by Southwest. Well, okay, we'll have to have a look at that if that's necessary for us to do that. I've answered that one. What does too much money from Innovate UK mean if you've won a grant?
That was a de minimis thing. I think if so Innovate UK, in terms of grant funding, we have state aid exemptions for that stuff, so that's fine. The question here is it's special drawing rights, I believe it's called now, which is what used to be de minimis. So that's the one you've got to look for, because that's the kind of direct state intervention limits. So those are the limits that Louise was talking about before. But if you just had an Innovate grant, that's fine.
Okay, somebody's not getting responses to their emails. Not too surprised about that. That's very Korean. I don't know what you're putting in your emails, but unless you've got a really strong value proposition, they won't probably look at it. And that is the benefit of working with us in this program, that we have, you know, in-country partners who will be engage with these companies, and we'll be able to approach them in the right way, because they are very tricky to get into. They are lovely people. They are so polite, they're so respectful. Once you sort of build a relationship with them, you know, they're really loyal. and you'll have a relationship for life, but it's very difficult to get in there in the first place. Does this program annually or to another timescale? It's running all the time at the moment, but it's just about where Innovate UK think the best opportunities exist, and that's in terms of market and technologies.
So just also, I think it depends what you mean by program. If you're talking about the GBIPs, then obviously Louise is right. There are many and very different GBIPs. If you're talking about this kind of South Korea activity, well, that depends, because that depends on some of the wider context and some of the other programs that are running. If you're talking about audiences, we're kind of towards the tail end of our kind of 4-year program, and we're looking at what we do next in terms of support for creative industries, creative technologies, immersive technologies. So kind of watch this space. But yeah, GBIP as a program of activity will continue.
One here, Matt, you'll be best at this. We're working in the NFT gaming space, not specifically VR, AR. Are we eligible?
No. Well, yes and no. I think no, if this is just about NFTs and gaming tech. If there is an immersive element to it, which is kind of being enabled by NFTs or, you know, distributed ledger or AI or 5G, then it would be, but it's about the immersive tech and the immersive experience that would be enabled by that.
IP protection, yes, we would cover that in the workshops. We're collaborating with another company. Could we both apply and come? You can both apply, whether you'll both be selected, I don't know. So, but you're perfectly entitled to apply. The one-person rule seems rather strict. Yeah, it is, but there's good reason for it. So unfortunately, that is our rule. I think we have gone through all the questions at lightning speed, but Matt's put his hand up. I think he's got.
Yeah, just as a quick note, I suppose, if you're kind of working through an application and you're unsure about something, come and talk to us, and come and talk to us early. You know, I forget the deadline. I'm sure Louise can remind me, but you know, don't come and talk to us at 11:30 on the day of the deadline. You know, come and talk to us in advance if you're not sure about the scope, the technology piece. I guess the partnerships and anything else, you know. Yeah, so 16th of February. So come and talk to us in advance. You know, you've got a month now to come and, you know, scope out your ideas. Well, we'll help you as much as we can. I mean, I suppose one way to look at this, these are not trick questions. We're not trying to kind of make this as difficult as possible. We are trying to help support you and your businesses to engage with South Korea, to commercialize immersive technologies and creative content and add value to UK economy. We are trying to help you. So come and talk to us. So if you're not sure about anything we've said today, you're not sure about any of the kind of guidance or the briefing, or you just want some clarification, come and talk to us. Come and talk to us early. We're all very friendly. You know, we'll try and help you as much as we can. We won't obviously write it for you, but we will definitely kind of explain what the thinking behind it, why we're trying to do it, what the sort of thing that we're looking for, and that will hopefully help. So if you're not sure about any other questions, yeah, there's various ways to get in touch, including the kind of support at innovateuk.gov.uk email. It's still up and running. So, you know, they have SLA agreements. In fact, in some ways, I would encourage you and recommend you go to support, because, you know, as much as we're very happy to help, if you come to us, it will go into everybody's inboxes. If you go to support, you know, they have SLA agreements, they have to reply, they will come and chase us. You know, feel free to kind of go through that route, and that's always quite positive.
I would definitely say if you've got an innovation and growth specialist, have a conversation with them, because they will be able to spend a bit of time with you and, you know, go through your application, not necessarily write it for you, but certainly give you some pointers on what you should be putting in. It's not rocket science, the application, it really isn't. It's very, very straightforward. It's basically saying, what's your technology? What's the benefit? Why is South Korea going to be interested in it? What's the opportunity? You know, why is this going to create such an opportunity for you? How do you think that's going to help your business? And how are you going to exploit it? So, as I say, it's really not difficult. It's not a tricky application form. This is stuff that is really quite elementary, but I do think as well, if you can put a little bit of time in just understanding what the opportunity is for you, and I think reading the gem will offer some assistance, and just doing a bit of Googling, you will be fine in terms of an application anyway. Okay, I think that's it. Thank you ever so much to everybody for attending this morning. Also, thank you very much to Sean, David and Matt for joining us. And, you know, good luck, everybody.